How's it going, everyone? It's Sam. We have to talk about an asset that is dropping like crazy here today. And I gave a warning about it in the past, but I want to give another warning. If you have money in these assets, you really have to take a second look. You might want to sell, but we're going to talk about that here today. And it's one that I've bought in the past. Not this specific one, but I've bought something very similar before. And everything in this asset class is under fire here today. And it is cryptocurrency related. So we're going to go through it. If you're a stock investor, if you're a crypto investor, I would highly suggest staying through. I also want to give you a little bit of an update on the market. Thank you so much for watching this video. Hit subscribe underneath the video and check out the link to moomoo. They're giving you up to 15 free stocks when you deposit money. I just got a message from someone the other day that signed up and they're getting the full 15 stocks and they're giving you an extra $10 too with the link underneath the video just for a short period of time. There's also a link down there to BitGet. That's a great place to be buying and selling cryptocurrency, and they're giving you a ton of sign-up bonuses as well. It's really easy to use, so check that link out underneath the video as well. I'll put both of them in the description and in the pinned comment. Now, the market is doing a little bit of a V-shaped recovery here today. We have the Dow slightly green. We have the NASDAQ just down about 0.6% after being down about 1.5% earlier. Now, Bitcoin has also come down a bit. You can see we're right against this 100-day moving average, and we're just kind of bumping up against it. It's hard for us to break through, and you can see that we've broken through a couple times in the past, but then been pretty much rejected right after we broke through. And then we do have a $22,800 mark that we have to pay attention to as well. And then you can see we have one around 25,000, and there are a ton of different levels, just right in this range between 20,000 and 25,000. But I really think the direction of the stock market and of the crypto market is going to depend a bit on Wednesday. Well, actually a lot on Wednesday. So we had the Fed meeting. You can see that we're predicting a little bit more of a probability of 75 basis points. But I think what's really going to be important is what Jerome Powell says afterwards, what kind of direction he gives the market. Are they going to continue to be hawkish? Or are they going to go a little bit more dovish? Now, I'm not going to spend too much time on this because everyone talks about this. We also have the DXY going up a little bit here today, which is most likely why we see a little bit of a sell-off in equities and in cryptocurrencies. Now, about 8 days ago, about a week ago, I talked about how this could be the final crypto capitulation event and how miners are failing. And really try to get across the fact that on Twitter, oftentimes we see rumors that are kind of being whispered around, and those come to fruition, but we first hear about them on Twitter from Bitcoin analysts. And I talked about how a lot of the big Bitcoin miners were possibly in trouble because of the fact that energy costs are going up, the Bitcoin price is going down, ASICs value are going down, so the cost of the miners and the value of the miners that they've been buying for years, and they also aren't able to get debt at scale for the same price, right? Or the same rate because rates are going up. And how apparently a lot of companies were possibly going to go bankrupt. Now, just a few days after that, actually 5 days after that, 3 days ago, I talked about how Core Scientific possibly is going bankrupt. And we have more news of a cryptocurrency miner here today that is possibly going bankrupt as well. So Core Scientific going down 76% in the last 5 days. They're down 98% or something like that from the peak. We got news of Argo having a $27 million fundraise falling through. They said earlier this month that they signed a letter of intent to sell 87 million shares to the investor, which I believe is like tripling or quadrupling their share count, if I have that right. And then they also are selling a bunch of miners. So they sold 3,843 anti-miner S19J Pros for $5.6 million. Now, let's do the math on that. That's just over $1,000 per miner. They go for about $2,000 new, but most likely they were buying them for significantly more than that. So again, they're selling them for about $1,400, $1,500 now. I bought one of those miners a year ago for $10,000. It was actually $12,000. So if they were buying them even for 30% off or something like that, maybe they bought them for $8,000, they're selling them for 1/5 what they paid for them. And they intended to sell 3,400 for $7 million, but they couldn't. And the price of the miners continue to go down. So they're having a harder and harder time. Now, how much is this? How many miners is this compared to what they have? Well, this was about 15% of their overall hash rate. So this is obviously bad news. The stock's fallen 52% here today. It's a $42 million company now. And the fact is that when they sell these, you have to realize that they're building, their costs, their employees, unless they're downgrading, right? Their expenses are the same, but they're making less revenue. So it's harder and harder to get to the point where you get economies of scale and you start making a lot on the bottom line if you're selling off some of your top line, essentially. Now, with this being said, this did happen because they couldn't get this $24 million, $27 million, this funding. So unfortunately, they had to do something to come up with the money. Now, I think that you should be very careful of Bitcoin miners right now. I think any companies that have held on to Bitcoin, essentially, they're in a tough place because they've held on to a depreciating asset. They've bought depreciating assets. They aren't able to get loans against them as easily. The rates are going up. And essentially, whenever you hold onto Bitcoin as a Bitcoin miner, it's pretty much leveraging up your business, putting more of your money into a digital cryptocurrency, which is very volatile, and then taking out either more loans or drawing down your cash. I mean, imagine we see another $16,000 Bitcoin, and then these companies more and more go bankrupt. Now, if you're looking at these companies, I think you really have to look at the balance sheet. I personally like CleanSpark more than other Bitcoin miners just for the price and the stability of the business. But even there, I don't know where CleanSpark's going to be in a month. They announce earnings here for Q3 soon. But to be honest, all of these Bitcoin miners are risky in my opinion right now. And I don't hold any. I know some people that have been investing pretty heavily in them. But I still have not touched Bitcoin miners. I sold out a couple months ago, and I'm glad with all these liquidity concerns. With that being said, I like CleanSpark. They are still growing their hash rate. They're at 5.5 exahash per second, which is more than 2 times what Argo is. They're pretty cheap for that, but really, I think it depends on their balance sheet. I think that's going to be the key for them. Now, they continue to outpace expectations. They're crushing it as far as other cryptocurrency mining companies, and they're increasing the amount of Bitcoin, obviously, pretty quickly that they're mining. So they mined 448 Bitcoin for the month, last month. As of September 30, they held 594 Bitcoin. So hopefully in the next week, we get a new Bitcoin mining update. Hopefully they are continuing to hold Bitcoin because I think that's a little bit of an indication that they're still okay on cash for now. But even CleanSpark, right? They've spent a lot of money on ASIC miners. They've grown a lot. So hopefully they can weather this storm. But I'd just be careful of all these miners right now, just in general, because it is a very risky time to be in mining. And this could set up capitulation. Now, good news for Bitcoin holders is Argo doesn't hold that many Bitcoin right now. Just a few hundred, I believe. So it's not like there's going to be huge selling pressure. Same thing with Core Scientific. I think basically if these companies go bankrupt, then the hash rate's going to go down. It's going to make the other Bitcoin miners much stronger balance sheet wise because they're going to get higher profitability. They're going to get more Bitcoin in the meantime while they're mining. And it's going to put them in a better place. They're also going to be able to buy more ASIC miners for cheaper if they want to. And overall, I think as long as these companies don't hold too much Bitcoin and cause this kind of cascade or liquidation event, I think we should be okay. But I wouldn't be surprised to see maybe some big players try to liquidate some of these miners because that way they can buy maybe their miners for cheap. And that would be good for them long term if they do want to get into Bitcoin mining. Or they tried to set up these liquidation cascades, and then whatever Bitcoin they do hold, they end up selling off, especially because we have been trading in such a tight range. I would assume there would be tons of liquidations if we see a big capitulation event, but it's going to depend a little bit on the Fed, I believe, as well. No one's going to try to short the market or dump a bunch on the market if the Fed turns more dovish. I don't think that would be probably a wise decision. Now, one last thing I do want to cover, the inflows for the week for digital assets. We did see 13.4 million going into Bitcoin, and we saw some come out of Ethereum, some come out of multi-asset, but some came out of short Bitcoin as well. So while we only saw about 6.1 million overall this week flowing into digital assets, we actually can kind of take away that 2.4 million because it's actually a positive that less was going into short Bitcoin and some was actually flowing out. So if this was actually a positive instead of a negative, we'd basically be around 11 million or so in terms of inflows for the week. This is going to be an interesting week with the Fed. Just have your tap dancing shoes on, be ready for anything, have some money on the sidelines maybe, and be careful of these Bitcoin miners. Like I said, I'm just trying to give you the information before it drops, and that's why I did that warning video. That's why I made another video talking about just be careful of all miners, and this is why I want to say this could continue happening. So be careful. Thank you so much for watching. I'm going to be traveling for the next 2 days, so I might not be posting as many videos just over the next few days, but I will be keeping an eye on the market. Thank you, and I'll see you in the next one. Check out the links underneath the video. And if you want to watch a fun video on becoming a billionaire with just 5 Bitcoin and 10 Ethereum and seeing if it's possible, check out this video up here.